Part 3. The book's over, but we need to fill in some holes. Stanley's mother insists that there was never a curse. She even doubts whether Stanley's great-great-grandfather really stole a pig. And you, the listener, and me, the reader, might find it interesting, however, that Stanley's father invented his cure for foot odor the day after the great-grandson of Elia Yelnats carried the great-great-grandson of Madame Zeroni up a mountain. The Attorney General closed Camp Green Lake. Miss Walker, who was in desperate need of money, had to sell the land which had been in her family for generations. It was bought by a national organization dedicated to the well-being of young girls. In a few years, Camp Green Lake will become a Girl Scout camp. That's pretty much the end of the story. The listener or the reader probably still has some questions, but unfortunately from here on in, the answers tend to be long and tedious. While Mrs. Bell, Stanley's former math teacher, might want to know the percentage change in Stanley's weight, you, the reader, probably cares more about the change in Stanley's character and self-confidence. But those changes are subtle and hard to measure. There's no simple answer. Even the contents of the suitcase turned out to be somewhat tedious. Stanley's father pried it open from his workshop. At first, everybody gasped at the sparkling jewels. Stanley thought he and Hector had become millionaires, but the jewels were of poor quality, worth no more than $20,000. Underneath the jewels was a stack of papers that had once belonged to the first Stanley Yelnats. These consisted of stock certificates, deeds of trust, and promissory notes. They were hard to read and even more difficult to understand. Ms. Marengo's law firm spent more than 2 months going over all the papers. They turned out to be a lot more valuable than the jewels. After legal fees and taxes, Stanley and Zero each received $1 million. A little bit more or less. It was enough for Stanley to buy his family a new house with a laboratory in the basement, and Hector to hire a team of private investigators. But it would be boring to go through all the tedious details of all the changes in their lives. Instead, you, the reader, will probably presented with one last scene here. So imagine this last scene, which took place almost a year and a half after Stanley and Hector left Camp Green Lake. And after this last scene, the rest, you're going to have to fill in the holes. Here it is. There's a small party at the Yelnats' house. Except for Stanley and Hector, everyone there was an adult. All kinds of snacks and drinks were set out on the counter, including caviar, champagne, and the fixings to make ice cream sundaes. The Super Bowl was on television, but nobody was really watching it. It should be coming on the next break, Ms. Morongo announced. A timeout was called in the football game, and a commercial came on the screen. Everybody stopped talking and watched. The commercial showed a baseball game. Amid a cloud of dust, Clyde Livingston slid into home plate as the catcher caught the ball and tried to tag him out. "Safe!" shouted the umpire as he signaled with his arms. The people at Stanley's house cheered as if the run really counted. Clyde Livingston got up and dusted the dirt off of his uniform. And as he made his way back to the dugout, he spoke to the camera. "Hi, I'm Clyde Livingston, but everybody around here calls me Sweet Feet." "Way to go, Sweet Feet!" another baseball player slapping him. Besides being on television screen, Clyde Livingston was also sitting on the couch next to Stanley. Now back to the Clyde Livingston on TV. He says, "But my feet weren't always sweet," the television Clyde Livingston said as he sat down on the dugout bench. "They used to smell so bad that nobody would sit near me in the dugouts." "They really did stink," said the woman sitting next to him on the couch on the other side of Clyde. She had her nose with one hand and fanned it with the other. Clyde shushed her. "Oh, shush." "Then a teammate told me about sploosh," said the television Clyde. He pulled a can of sploosh out from under the dugout bench and held it up for everybody to see. "I just spray a little on each foot every morning, and now I really do have sweet feet. Plus, I like the tingle." Everybody clapped. And then a voice came on the TV. "Sploosh, a treat for your feet. Made from all natural ingredients, it neutralizes odor-causing fungi and bacteria. Plus, you'll like the tingle." And then everybody at the party clapped their hands. I wasn't lying. His feet really do stink. I couldn't even be in the same room with him. The other people at the party laughed. The woman continued, but Clyde Livingston said, "Oh, you've made your point." Covering her mouth with one hand, and he looked back at Stanley. "Will you do me a favor, Stanley?" Stanley raised and lowered one shoulder. "I'm going to need more caviar. Keep your hand over my wife's mouth." He patted Stanley on the shoulder as he rose from the couch. Stanley looked uncertainly at his hand, and then Clyde Livingston's wife. She winked at him. He felt himself blush and turned away toward Hector, who was sitting on the floor in front of an overstuffed chair. A woman sitting on the chair behind Hector was absent-mindedly fluffing his hair with her fingers. She wasn't very old, but her skin had a weathered look to it, almost like leather. Her eyes seemed weary, as if she'd seen too many things in her life that she didn't want to see. And when she smiled, her mouth seemed too big for her face. Very softly, she half sang, half hummed a song that her grandmother used to sing to her when she was a little girl. And she was now singing it to Hector. If only the moon speaks no reply, reflecting the sun and all that's gone by. Be strong, my weary wolf, turn around boldly, fly high, my baby bird, my angel, my only. Thank you, Louis Sachar, for such a wonderful, wonderful story.